Colonel Chris, what is the role of the military in the politics of this country?
Thank you, moderator. I think you are starting me off in the wrong direction when you start asking about the role of the military in politics. And I think I need to address some issues which have been raised by previous speakers here. First of all, I want to somewhat commend Councillor Jude. Among all the people who have been speaking about this matter, I find he has some objective reality. But the majority of them by far, those who have been opposing this legislation, have simply been posturing. And you can also hear here Honorable Seggona, really full of cynicism when he talks about it, when he makes reference to family rule, which is very far from the truth. And this, I think this is very misleading to Ugandans. But I think Ugandans are also very wise, and they can judge what is real, what is false, and what is being projected as false narratives. First of all, I want to congratulate the members of parliament yesterday who passed this legislation, because I think they have rescued the people of Uganda.
From what?
This country was being pushed on the edge of the abyss. And I think some people joke too much.
But, Chris,
I think,
just a second.
No, just hold on.
When we were off air, you said that in this country we generally have peace. So when you say we were almost at abyss, it's a contradiction of what you said.
Just hold on. Since the Supreme Court judgment in January and up to this point, not just civilian cases in the General Court Martial, and which are very few, by the way, very, very insignificant. The entire army, the entire justice system in the army has been frozen. Nothing was being done. The soldiers were in detention, just continued there. The court martials couldn't operate because the Supreme Court raised the important observations. And I think these observations in this new amendment have now been addressed. And the people, I think, who somewhat attempted to get rid of, I think, the UPDF altogether, especially those two clauses they are making reference to, I think have achieved the opposite. We have now a stronger law. I think it's going to strengthen the security systems in this country, and the people of Uganda, I think, have reason to have hope. And I will explain. So, for starters, no trials are being conducted in the army. That's a very bad thing. The UPDF, one of our core tenets, one of our strengths is discipline. This Supreme Court judgment was not just about civilians, it was also about the military. And that's why I said Councillor Jude raised some of these issues. The Supreme Court made reference to the composition of the UPDF court martials and the qualifications of members. The Chief Justice gave an analogy that it was akin to a lawyer like him going to a medical theater and conducting surgery. He gave guidance in his lead judgment, and those observations have been captured. We have made amends, we have complied with the Supreme Court guidance on how the court martials in UPDF can proceed, not only for UPDF, but even others, as they have already pointed out. The other context I want people to understand is that Uganda is a very, very volatile region. But people don't understand it. Because for the last 40 years, UPDF has worked so hard to restore peace. Between 1962 and 1986, many of you here are old enough, they understand that history. UPDF reversed that course, formerly the NRA, and there has been peace. Actually, until 20 years ago, we are combating rebels in northern Uganda, ADF in western Uganda. For a long time, we have had issues in Karamoja of cattle rustlers. There was completely no peace in that part of the region. Therefore, what am I saying? The UPDF, using its many strengths, including discipline, has established discipline, restored peace. Now, and so many things, you know, nothing can take place if there's no peace and security. This is there for everyone to see. Why do some people want to change the status quo? If there is peace, if something is working, why do you seek to change it?
Exactly. So if the penal code has been working, why do you want to change it?
The UPDF Act, our standards of discipline are well known. We have always come strong against our own. Until I think also, started 20 years ago, we used to execute people on the firing squad for capital offenses like murder, like rape, armed robbery, and so on. And actually, those rules were still there. In the current amendment, only the General Court Martial can impose a death sentence, for instance. But even then, it cannot be executed until certified by the Supreme Court. So what is the worry? This law has been made better to accommodate all the fears.
How has it been made better if there is a penal code that has all those crimes you're talking about, from terrorism to murder to rape? How has it been made better? You are the prosecutor, the investigator, the one administering justice. Where is the independence?
The reason I earlier on say that some people joke too much. Right now, we have operations going on in Eastern Congo against ADF. And those are Ugandans. So Honorable Seggona here and the Council Jude and my elder sister there are suggesting that we should capture ADF combatants who take in civilians and we bring them here to some random civilian judge to attend to. It's quite intriguing. We have been working very hard to restore order.
You did pick Jamil Mukulu from Tanzania, brought him here. He's in a civilian court.
It was really under different arrangement. It was an extradition, and I don't want to go there.
Jude recommended that the military court can be part of the High Court.
Let me say this. These lawyers here, they have their own internal disciplinary processes. When one of their own goes contrary to their professional ethics, isn't it so? And all professions, whether in medical or anywhere, they do. How can you say that the UPDF, the National Army, the institution mandated to ensure our national security around the clock, cannot take decisive action against people who threaten this country? We must be able to do that, and I think it's the right thing that this law has been approved and we're able to do it. A lot of reservations have been raised about the exceptional circumstances, which some people seem to suggest are not exceptional. What is not exceptional about a civilian undergoing military training and equipping themselves with lethal weapons like ADF now, they have been here, they have carried out bombings, they have assassinated some people. What is not exceptional about such a character to come and appear in the court martial if they have voluntarily taken up arms? So I think we need to be serious. The politics is fine, but I think when it comes to issues of security, I think they should leave the security services to do their work without interference. I think it is good for the people of Uganda. It will enhance security in this country, and everything else will be able to take place. The second point I wanted to make about professional discipline, and I think this is where we make the mistake. The army cannot be compared to lawyers, to medical people, and so on. The army, all over the world, by the way, if you mishandle the army, you are literally playing with the fire. There are two things which could happen. One is you have a strong professional army, like the UPDF now, which respects the rule of law by and large. He's smiling, but he knows that's the truth.
I'm not smiling, really? I'm laughing at you.
So, by and large, we are a law-abiding institution.
Really? With a basement?
And by the way,
first teaching of Runyankore.
And by the way, let me say this. I think the issues are just around here, Kampala. The rest of the country...
No, you respond to the teaching of Runyankore in the basement.
The rest, I will come to that. The rest of the country is peaceful and doing very well, by the way. Just some few isolated cases here in Kampala, and maybe the greater metropolitan Kampala, and maybe some few other urban centers, but mainly here. And even then, it's not really a very big problem. Some isolated cases. And those ones, as the security services are aware and are going to deal with it, and Kampala will also be calm and peaceful. So I was saying, before you throw me off balance, that so one scenario is a competent army like ours, which has maintained peace here, and you are able to do all your businesses. All the other services in Uganda are taking place: education, health, people are doing trade, and so on. The opposite would be a wayward institution, like we have seen in Uganda before, and even in other parts of Africa currently, where there is completely no respect of the rule of the law, and you will not find clever people like Ms. Birete and our councils here discussing anything. They simply disappear and fuse into exile, and the country continues. The worst case scenario is the situation pertaining in most of Congo. Government is simply absent. There is no army to talk about in the first place.
The context there is completely different. Let's base on here.
So that I was driving to the point.
No, whatever achievements he's talking about, we worked for it. We worked for it.
I was making the point that we have to be very careful when we are talking about the military. It's comparing oranges and mangoes. We have to be very careful. Otherwise, we will burn our fingers. And it will be bad for everyone, including me and others.
Sounds more of a threat than really...
This is the reality. This is the reality. And we have to face it. For instance, my appeal would be, especially for young people. He has talked about many noob supporters. But we are not mad people. Why have we not come to arrest you?
Why do you behave like mad people if you are not mad?
Why have we not come to arrest you, Honorable?
It is your choice.
No.
Do I know when you're coming?
No, it is because by and large you are complying with the law. And this law now which has been amended and passed.
Maybe because I know Runyankoi.
I would
Okay.
I would argue that
Col Chris,
they need to comply with it. Because
let me ask a simple question. A journalist was beaten a few years ago just downtown. Today he can't do anything by military officers. The last elections, there was shooting by military officers.
And they better put
and
journalists.
this was people recording cameras and were shooting at them.
Yangweso,
We leave
when
that.
they beat a journalist in Kawempe, his boss tweeted and said,
I will
looking
promote
for this
you.
one, for this soldier who did
Is
that.
that the discipline
didn't
you
want
are
to go
talking
there.
about?
I wanted
No,
to
but
give-
that's why you should
I also
go.
wanted to go to Lubowa because I know the gist of Lubowa and what really transpired there. A car is parked. People are there. A person is called. These people go to report the case. The soldiers are commanding the police to take them in custody. The police is saying under what charges? Reinforcement is brought. It is not the first time. Soldiers have gone to the temple of court and picked people deliberately. Drones were moving during Kawempe and picking up people. When you talk about discipline, are you really laughing in the faces of Ugandans? Because you talk about Congo, we don't want to go there. We don't want to talk about Somalia and the looting.
It's not my
don't want to go
country.
there. We want to talk about here. What enforcement, or is just this laughable on what you're talking about security?
let me bring this out. There is a context to all this. And it is the politicians to address this as well. Lately, or in the recent few years, we have had an upward spiral of really hate language being propagated by some politicians, incitement of violence. Even members of the security services like myself have been directly threatened. You've been, I'm sure you have come across these clips in many forums, especially on social media.
So is this law curing that?
There is a dangerous environment, and that's why I'm appealing to all stakeholders, really, that this is what we need to address. It is at the bottom of the issues here.
Tell me one person who has ever threatened to kill Muhoozi before he threatened to kill Chapman.
Honorable Wait, you were talking of one issue that is causing many issues. There is poverty, there is unemployment. Those are all issues causing insecurity. You're answering them with an act.
Violence?
You're answering them with an act to solve a problem that has ramifications that are many.
Listen, at no point have I said that, or have I argued that the UPDF is perfect. In fact, that's why I've been repeatedly
You've
making reference.
insinuated it's perfect.
Not at all. In my opening remarks, I said discipline is one of our core values and accounts, I think, by far for our greatest success wherever we have been, here and in the region. Discipline. Firm discipline against our own. Where they have always erred or made mistakes, we have always taken action, and a decisive action. And sometimes very severe, like in the case of very many years in jail, which I think has also been a point of discussion, and even death. And these amendments have been made now. But I'm talking about, for instance, people projecting themselves as military, threatening others. You know, these days, I'm sure Honorable should be aware, people can no longer put on yellow on the streets of Kampala because they fear to be assaulted.
I was with him yesterday. He was putting on an ugly yellow T-shirt.
That is not true, and you know it.
You were there.
You have no idea
You know
about
it.
what is ugly about yellow and what is bright. It's not your color.
Yes,
Colonel.
and that environment is completely tense for everyone, and we
That's
we
why you
cannot
don't
accept.
want us
What
to
is
put
the
on red
solution?
because yellow is not.
What is the solution?
Let us go to politics which are civil, of common sense,
So that's why you're enforcing discipline in
In
us.
the basement.
of patriotism, of tolerance. We have had a senior political leader, not even one, I think several, openly calling for undemocratic means to capture power in public, mobilizing young people, and some are good enough and have ended up in that trap. Why are we pursuing that
So
kind
you
of
have pursued
politics?
that one.
Why are we pursuing that kind of politics? Where we deliberately mislead young people?
Is the army partisan?
Not at all.
Can the army salute any other president that comes into power?
Absolutely.
Certainly.
That's the constitution.
So, if that is it, what is the problem with taking an army officer who has murdered before a high court with evidence for him to receive fair, independent, and competent justice?
And what's wrong with us?
You are the prosecutor, the investigator, and you deliver the justice.
The Supreme Court made reference to those points, and the amendment has just addressed them. And that's why I said that law is now stronger, it's more efficient, and it's going to help us deliver justice even better. Because all the issues they raised have been addressed. Not only for the civilians who are under contention, but
What
even
issues
for
have
our
been
own.
addressed?
Because even the UPDF members are also Ugandans. They deserve
The Supreme
fairness.
Court said you can't charge offenses which are chargeable in other courts. Have you included those charges in your new law?
I'm not into those intricacies.
No.
I thought you'd
you
be
have
asking
addressed.
you as a member of parliament, because for him, the law has just been given you. Have you actually included them? Honorable
You
Medal
brought that
Seggona.
law.
Honorable
You
Seggona, let's,
surrounded Parliament to ensure it goes through.
No.
Honorable, let's let Kano complete his submission. Please complete.
So,
But he promised to tell me about what they did to Mohoz for engaging in partisan politics and threatening to kill and violating rights of other people. He puts in his basement.
so,
He has not answered.
so
I'm waiting.
my appeal was, let the, especially young people, and especially here in Kampala, let them not be misled. Let them observe the law. You are talking about if someone is found drafting
Plaints and
a plaints or something, and they are not a lawyer. How would it look if I was to dress in priestly robes and carry my machine gun and come to patrol the streets? I'm sure
You would not be disciplined in the church.
No,
The
but
church-
they would certainly
the church
they
will
would
not
certainly
discipline
be
you.
concerned.
The church has
They
no
would be
disciplinary
concerned.
mechanism.
No, the church has a disciplinary committee. They will not discipline you.
No, but they would
Honorable,
be
please allow
concerned.
the Kano to
He asked
complete.
me.
But they will be concerned. So, but the difference is that the
They
army,
take you where you
the
belong.
army is talking about deadly weapons. I asked here a question earlier. What is not exceptional about a so-called civilian who undergoes military training, gets equipped with deadly weapons, and comes and murders people, or kills people, or engages in any other crime, or aggravated robbery and so on, or rape, as is happening, by the way. Not so much here in Uganda because the security systems are strong, but in many other places around the continent. What is not exceptional about that person appearing in a court of law legally, as the case
Actually,
might
the
be here in
exceptional
Uganda?
cases, Chris, for your benefit, that the Chief Justice was referring to, is that there would be cases where actually he went ahead and qualified it and said where there are no functional civil courts. And I was helping, you remember, I was helping. I said, we can even provide for them. For example, someone has accompanied the army in Somalia, in Congo. They are on the front line. There is no possibility of our soldiers abandoning the front line to bring this person back to be charged in Uganda. Those are the exceptional cases. They were not about talking about exceptional offenses or matters, facts constituting offenses. Situations where the courts in Uganda are not in a position, or they are not functional in that particular part. But once courts are here and are functional, the Supreme Court said, don't proceed to the courts martial.
Okay. Gentlemen.
Can I make a quick rejoinder? Just for your information. Since July 2020, I think 2023, when we launched the disarmament operation in Karamoja, because there was an upsurge again after about 10-15 years since the conclusion of the disarmament operation that time in 2009. In the last 2 years, we have arrested over 26,000 in Karamoja alone now, in the Karamoja sector, 26,000 armed Karimojong warriors using guns to attack their neighbors, even raiding across the border and even across regions. 26,000. Many have been charged and convicted. They are serving sentences. Many are 26,000. We are already talking about a judiciary which is overwhelmed by thousands of cases long behind the schedule, and they cannot be heard. And yet we have an urgent security problem to deal with in Karamoja.
Okay.
And you are saying that all that should hold, the people can continue committing crime?
No, please.
And so on. Because what happens?
Take us more serious. Nobody has said that.
No, listen. But what happens with the civil courts? Bail, detention, they are released. They go back and commit crime. The same people.
Okay.
But we are dealing with that situation.
Yeah, maybe
just a quick comment before we make closing remarks.
You see Kano's point. Even if we look at Karamoja sub-region, just specifically, the civilian courts, if you give them the infrastructure which the military has, they'll also do the same work. And in fact, I know for sure that over 100 of some of those warriors, some I think had crossed over, they were Kenyans from the Turkana region, some were minors, and they were still eventually, some were released still through the courts because they had pleaded guilty and things like that. But what's important, you see, Kano, the civilian judiciary is also able to work when it is facilitated. And I know for the division court martial which sat there to be able to process all of those cases, they also did something that was a bit unusual. And even the judiciary generally, there are those special cases when, if for example there's a problem that's unique to a region, you can ask the judiciary to also provide special attention to that region. And I mean, if there are people with firearms,
the judgment of the Chief Justice.
Yes, and it happens all the time. For example, you'll find that the judiciary has sessions for sexual offenses in various parts of the country, and then they go and address them. They'll have a session for land disputes, and then they go and handle them. So the issue is, the advantage that the army had is they were funded to go and do it. They had the capacity in terms of, you have personnel, you provide security. So if the judges have the security to go and camp in Moroto and Abim and Kapiripiti, they will get the job done.
Okay.